Dave, hope you're well. I imagine the last, let's say, 20 hours have been a little crazy for you. How would you just describe what that's been like since the lockout ended?
Um, it's certainly been crazy. I'm excited. I'm energized. I think everyone is. So I think the kind of course of action on my end is just getting logistics to get out to Arizona and reconnecting with players, coaches, and front office to kind of see how we're going to attack spring training and the roster. But just hearing from players and knowing that they're well and excited is a good start.
And you mentioned just kind of the plan for spring training. What would you guys say is really the primary focus for you all this year, especially with what's looking like a very non-traditional spring training?
I think obviously getting guys ready for April 7th or 8th, and it's going to be abbreviated, but I do think that having some history with an abbreviated spring training certainly is something we can pull from. It's always, I think, in spring training, it's starting pitchers and getting workload built up for the relievers and then the position players. So I'm not sure exactly on the number of guys we're going to have in camp. We're playing games here pretty quickly. So I think you're going to see some guys that we might, the everyday guys we probably won't see until the weekend. But it's kind of threading the needle on ramping them up, but not trying to put them in harm's way.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Next question is from Fabian Ardaya. Go ahead.
Hey, Dave. I know it's obviously the probably most popular topic of conversation surrounding you. I mean, where do things sort of stand with you and your contract?
We're moving forward. Hopefully we can get it done sooner than later. So I think that we're really close. So I don't think that it's going to be an issue here in the coming days.
And then
thank you for asking.
And then you guys have like that going on, but also this might be a free agency sort of where you're going to have guys signing during spring training. How much is that going to make things more difficult for you just trying to integrate everyone before the season starts?
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge, but I do think that it's just going to be every ball club is going to be in that situation. Every player is going to be in that situation. So I do think that there's some incentive for players to kind of sign and get with the club to get assimilated. But whenever that happens, I just don't think it's going to be an issue. We are who we are, and obviously we vet guys, and we feel that they're good enough to be in our ball club. Then I don't think it'll be a problem assimilating.
And then with it being such a quick turnaround, do you expect there to be some issues maybe getting players into camp on time, especially with visas?
I don't. We've kind of went through that exercise with the guys. So we're doing physicals Sunday, Monday. So I would expect everyone there on time.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Next question is from Juan Toribio. Go ahead.
Hey, Dave, once you got the green light to call players, what was just kind of their reaction and just the conversations between the two of you guys?
It was just happy that we could talk, and as Trey Turner put it, it felt like we were in timeout. So now that we can talk and not do and not wrong anyone, I think that just having normal conversations with players and coaches, I think it was just good to catch up, because I'd like to know what's going on in their off seasons. And so those are the kind of the conversations, and just making sure guys were healthy, ready to go. And the guys that weren't totally ramped up, just kind of where they're at. So how we can kind of make sure, how to pace them throughout spring training.
And as far as the workload, you kind of mentioned the pitching is obviously the priority. Have you guys talked about, maybe having a 6-man rotation kind of open the year? Is that too early because you kind of don't know what the roster is going to look like?
I don't think it's a 6-man rotation. I think it's more of the guys that are in camp. I think if you look from call it 4 through 12, in our organization. There's a lot of guys that we're going to ask to be able to go to take down 3 to 5 innings. So with the DH, it's a little bit easier to kind of have that length guy, and it's probably more important. So I think that, under that kind of lens, to look at guys that can go longer versus having a 6-man rotation, certainly early in the season.
There are two pretty big free agents from your team, Kershaw and Kenley. Did you communicate with them at all, or you just kind of letting them do their thing?
No, I haven't. Obviously, I have a great relationship with both those guys. They're going to be Dodgers forever as far as kind of the legacy piece. How it plays out in the coming weeks, I just don't know. I haven't talked to them.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Next question is from Bill Plunkett. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, Dave, you mentioned talking to the front office about the roster. There's an anticipation of a real free agent frenzy in the next few days. How much work do you think your roster needs, and are you anticipating, some significant additions?
Definitely expecting additions. I think a little bit, Bill, is trying to understand the structure of the roster as far as what we're able to have. I think that's one thing that's still being ironed out as far as how many players you can have on a roster, position players versus pitchers. I don't think that's completely ironed out. So that'll kind of help dictate how we go about things. But I think that it's easy to say that it's easy to look at our roster and say that, we need to, focus on starting pitching. I think some depth on the position player side, I think, is something that's is a good starting point. I like our pen. Can we get better? Certainly. Is there something that might happen in the pen? Certainly. But I think on the position player, everyday side, I think the bench we could add there as well.
And, Clayton and Kenley have been big parts of this team for a long time. You mentioned you haven't talked to them. How strange will it feel to go to spring training and not see their faces there?
It will feel very strange. I think the thing that players count on, fans, coaches, and everyone counts on, stalwarts and cogs, and those two guys in particular have been that for the Dodgers. So that kind of missing that early on, and again, it might change, I don't know, but to not see that day one of camp, which I'm assuming probably won't happen, is going to be is going to be an adjustment for everyone.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Next question is from Jack Harris. Go ahead, Jack.
Hey, Dave, what sense did you get from players talking to them about sort of where they are just in terms of kind of ramping up for the season and how long it might take them or how quickly they might be able to kind of catch up on the time you guys have missed in spring so far?
I would say that everyone I talked to, including Max Muncy, I would say it's fair to say that we'll be ready for opening day. To what capacity, I can't really speak to that, but I would say that everyone's in a really good place. Certainly, as far as emotionally, mentally, but physically, I think that, with what Max went through, the rehab, the range of motion, the strength. I talked to him yesterday, and it's probably about 85%. And so I think he might have been one of the beneficiaries of a week postponement of the season.
Have you started thinking about some of the changes with the CBA in terms of how it impacts the roster with things like, the universal DH and the option limits? Like, how much of an impact right now do you kind of think those things will have and how you guys approach the roster?
Yeah, I think that's something that I was talking to Andrew about it, and I think that I know we're aligned in the fact that we could pivot and get that everyday, DH. But I think that for kind of the way we view things and a season and our roster that we have right now, to just kind of use that as a revolving position, essentially, in the batting order, to facilitate days off and maybe augment a matchup that we like that night. So that's kind of how we see it. So with the DH, it certainly changes kind of the landscape. But I think for us, defending, but using that as a revolving position, I think is the way we look at it.
And did you have thoughts on like the new playoff format, especially you guys have had a lot of different kind of playoff experiences the last couple of years. Is that something that stuck out to you?
You know what? I looked at it a little bit, and I think that it's a compromise. I think it's a win for everyone. And I looked at it as far as did the exercise of how it would have potentially affected years past, and I don't think it would have changed much. So I think that this is a good resolution. I do like the best record, you get the bye, and I love the division series or the wild card 3 games. The home team, the better record plays all 3 at home. I think that's an advantage, which it should be. So I think they got it right.
And then just as the negotiations were going on, like, were there points where you were worried that a lot of the season could be missed or maybe all of it? Just sort of how did that play out for you, kind of tracking all that and kind of what does it mean to be able to still get in a full 162 this year?
I'm very pleased that we're, like all of us, getting in the full 162 because, my fear was the more games you miss it poses another conversation with both sides as far as compensation. So now that we're playing 162, it's going to add a little bit of navigating as we get through the summer, because as I understand it, I think they're going to be 9-inning doubleheaders to get those games in. But yeah, I think it's great for everyone that we came to a consensus and we're going to play 162.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Next question is from Dylan Hernandez. Go ahead.
Hey, Dave, how are you?
I'm doing well, Dylan. Good hearing from you.
All right. Well, you tell me that after hearing this first question.
Oh, no.
Do you anticipate Trevor Bauer being in camp with you guys?
Well, I've kind of haven't been too privy to what's going on because it's certainly something with Major League Baseball and his attorneys and all that kind of stuff. So I haven't heard. I don't want to completely close the door on him potentially being in spring training because I just don't know enough. So certainly heard and saw the his thoughts about a month ago, and so he's been staying in shape. And I don't know where he is as far as like a reserve list or how it works. I just don't know that. So I don't want to close the door completely on that.
Have you or anyone else in the organization been in touch with him at all during this time?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not that I know of.
Okay. And do you know where Kershaw is in terms of where he is in his recovery?
I don't. Knowing Clayton, he is preparing for April 7th or 8th. I don't know if he's in Arizona right now. I don't know if he's in Highland Park. So, but knowing him, he's ready to pitch for a ball club.
You mentioned Muncy earlier. My understanding was during this lockout, the training staffs couldn't contact players either. And I was just kind of wondering, what was kind of the work? How did you guys kind of work around that to make sure, guys,
What we did, and what I think organizations did was, as we knew the lockout was forthcoming, to try to get ahead of it and get guys placed with care in wherever they're going to be in their respective towns. So Max didn't have our care. We couldn't check in on him, but at least we knew where he was at. So then now it's kind of doing the conversations, the catching up, getting up to speed on all of our guys. And that's kind of happening in real time.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Next question is from Kurt Sandoval. Go ahead.
Hey, Dave, great seeing you. I'm curious with the CBA changes on the shift. And was there anything else that really, how you felt about the shift? And was there anything else that, other than the DH, is challenging how you will manage this year?
The DH certainly is the biggest one because that 3-batter minimum is still in play. The shift really doesn't change how I manage. It certainly obviously changes how we defend. I think a lot of the position players are pretty excited about that. But there's going to be some kind of navigating on how much you can push borders to kind of still prevent hits and get outs. But I think that the DH for me, as I alluded to earlier, Kurt, how you kind of put together the pitching and getting guys that are longer length guys that can still pitch and leverage is really going to be important.
And just to follow up with spring training, you said guys are getting physical Sunday and Monday. What will Tuesday be like in terms of there's still guys that you might expect later in camp? You're going to be playing games in less than a week. How do you kind of put the throttle down, but as you said, kind of thread the needle where you don't put them in harm's way?
I think, yeah, I mean, first day of workouts, Tuesday. There's guys that we have, minor league players, prospects that have been in camp for 3-4 weeks already, and so I think it's pretty safe to say if we do open up on Thursday, you're going to see a lot of those guys around the Cactus League, and on Friday. I just don't know. I just, until we put our hands and see guys, I just can't say right now when a player is going to be ready to play, because this is certainly different, but we got to make do. I do have to keep in mind, we all have to keep in mind, fans making their way out to spring training games and they want to see their players, which I totally respect that. But everyone's just going to have to kind of be open to, whatever happens.
Yeah. Dave, thank you.
Yeah, you got it, Kurt.
Got time for a couple more. Go ahead, Eric.
Dave, hi. Just wondering about you mentioned the extra roster spots or, things that are still being talked about. Are there still going to be COVID protocols and things like that? Is that still being sort of sorted out?
That is being sorted out. And I think that's certainly, as Major League Baseball has certainly tried to be compliant and more on the careful side, I definitely think that there's going to be some protocols, but I can't even speak to it right now, how it's going to look.
And in terms of checking in on guys, Caleb Ferguson, Tommy Kenley, where are they at? I know they didn't pitch last year, recovering, but where are they at in terms of readiness that you know of?
So as we look at opening day, being the 7th, they're progressing. I just don't know enough right now. I'm still trying to talk to the training guys and seeing where they're at. So they're making their strides. They're getting closer. So, but I just don't want to put a hard date to play.
And then when are you actually going out there? I know
I'll see you, Eric, on Sunday afternoon, but I'll be there at Camelback Ranch Sunday morning.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Last one's from Claudia. I guess. Go ahead.
Hey, Dave. Great to see you.
Thanks, Claudia.
I know there's so many rumors about all these free agents floating around, but how much would you like to see Freddie Freeman in a Dodgers uniform?
I would love to see Freddie Freeman in a Dodger uniform. I think that who wouldn't? He's a heck of a ball player. So he's put himself in a situation to be a free agent. So he's earned that right and the opportunity to be courted by other teams and to see what's best for him and his family. But certainly, in the conversation for us, but ultimately it's going to be his decision.
Thanks, Dave.